Assalamu alaikum. Wow, we almost filled up the room. Thank you for making time in your schedule to come and share with us on this topic. Um, I must say that when I saw African Americans and philanthropy, I was consulting other people who really know more about philanthropy, in my understanding, that I did. And I had the intention of doing exactly what our brother did. So thank you for that brief oral history. I just want to uh, follow up along that line so that we can maybe expand our understanding about what is philanthropy actually. So I would ask us to try and think of ways to rekindle our passion for historical knowledge. And if we need to do research, and surely we all need to do deeper research, then we need to begin now to educate ourselves about the contributions. Even before we think about contributions, we have to think about the presence of African American Muslims. I like to say Africans in the Americas who were Muslim and enslaved in this part of the world. That is really a very important endeavor that we must undertake in order to really grasp the incredible contributions that African Muslims in the Americas have made to us present today and to our civilization in general. Now, I should warn you that I'm always trying to encourage people to become deeper, more deeply involved in researching this history, because I'm convinced that if and until we do that, we will be constantly reinventing the wheel. Islam is not new in this part of the world. We've been here for centuries. And I was talking with one of my sisters earlier that Muslims, one of the scholars that I worked with for years, Sylviane Diouf, some of you may be familiar with one of her wonderful little books called Servants of Allah, African Muslims Enslaved in the Americas. And she talks about the hidden evidences of that experience. And because we are just now beginning to realize that incredibly rich history, it's because we have not been trained what to look for. So she calls it the hidden evidences. And I think she set a very high bar for us to begin to explore ourselves and the rich contributions that we've made to society. So now when we think of philanthropy, we think of probably writing a grant to Ford or some of the funders to get money for our projects, as it were. And that's fine. But there is a deeper meaning, certainly in our experience, because Sylviane talked about during the enslavement period, that Muslims who were enslaved themselves were actually still practicing. They were still fasting, even though they had little themselves. They were still giving sadaqah, even though they had little to give. But the traditions and the spirit remained. So this history is really critical. Now, part of the work that I do is in human rights, trying to follow that line, connect with stuff at the United Nations that does not always represent clearly what it is that we are trying to accomplish here in terms of establishing social justice for everyone and not just for the few. But this history is going to give us an opportunity to see how much we have to offer, how much we have already given and continue to give, no matter how much wealth we have materially or not. So, after 9/11, we had an opportunity to begin this conversation again about what does it mean to be Muslim in America. And we had to start like we are starting here, that the history of Muslims in America, it should not allow us to have to say we are new in this part of the world, and have that incorrect information proliferate in the wider society. Said, no, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And when we allow that to happen, we try to fight a struggle with one of our hands tied behind our backs because we don't know our history. So, I mean, I don't think we could fill up this whole conference with the incredible sacrifices and philanthropic contributions that has come from this community of Muslims. And I speak specifically about the African Muslim experience in America. So now we have museums that we can go to. The brother mentioned one here in Chicago. We have museums that are cropping up all over the country documenting the enslavement period, Jim Crow, lynching in America, all of these things. Still, we have not tapped yet the rich legacy of the African American Muslim experience in this part of the world. And much of our energy is spent critiquing what other people are saying about us. And it's very important. And we cannot start too early, but we must do this work ourselves. And when we are able to bring our own history in full view, front and center, not as an after, a footnote to someone else's project, but that we begin to do this work ourselves, then, we will continue to be trying to make up time or critique or correct some misperception about who Muslims are in this part of the world and what are the actual contributions that Muslims have made. We are having some scholars look at Harriet Tubman, for instance, right? And we are learning that her name, her given name, actually has a Muslim root. It's like, wow, that's pretty mind-blowing, And there are so many others like that, that we don't know about because we haven't done the history, we haven't done the work. I was talking with the brother earlier, and he was mentioning Ivan van Sertima, right? Do you know who Ivan van Sertima is? If you don't, go and Google him, find out who Ivan van Sertima was. He was an amazing historian. And, I'm on staff at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in New York City, in Harlem. You need to come and visit, we have incredible documents on this experience. And we found before we had Muslims beginning to write about ourselves, we had to search through other collections like Ivan van Sertima and find ourselves located actually in his work because he saw Muslims when we did not. So it's those nuggets, again, those hidden evidences that we don't know about because we haven't been taught to do the research and we haven't been taught to know what to look for up until now. But now you do have the resources. You have mentors, you have scholars who are pointing the way. So we don't really have an excuse. So the question is, who are African Americans and philanthropy? I'm still questioning what does that actually mean? Are you asking how much money do we have and how much do we donate to a particular organization? Or because that's still resonating in my head, right? But I hear a deeper meaning of legacy as philanthropy, right? And I think that that's really something that we need to research more deeply and really at heart. So it's great to have these kinds of gatherings and lectures and talks and embracing each other and seeing our sisters and brothers from all over the place. It's really wonderful. It's heartwarming. But we have to do more. Our sister here, Morgana, with Muslim Art, is here breaking down some real serious doors about some of the challenges in our community about anti-Blackness. And this is part of the reason why we don't get the incredible legacy, the incredible contribution, the incredible paving of the way for now what you see as the Muslim community in America. It's time to do this work. It's time to support that work and philanthropically as well as actively engaging in it ourselves so that we can unlearn some of the biases that we all carry as a result of our miseducation. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Carter G. Woodson, but he talks, about the miseducation of the Negro. And I posit that it's not only the Negro that's been miseducated, but Muslims have been miseducated also. So we have to own that. We have to know that it's great that we go to all of the Ivy League schools, that we're in the top of the class, we get the highest degrees and honors. It's very important that we do that, yeah. But we also have to know that another scholar at the center wrote this book. It's called Ebony to Ivy. Ebony to Ivy. And what is he talking about? He's talking about how all of the Ivy League universities today were involved in the slave trade. You got to know this, which tells you then that you cannot just rely on the degrees that you get from Princeton, Harvard, and Yale. But you got to go a little deeper, to find out what your own legacy is, what your own history is as Muslims in America. Now, I told everyone here on this panel that we were only going to take 15 minutes. But you can see that we can talk all day on this. But philanthropy is not just donating money to organizations, although that's very important to be supportive of the people who are making incredible sacrifices on our behalf to bring us knowledge that we wouldn't otherwise have, as well as providing a road of mentorship for younger generations. And, when you look around the room and the room where people are really fighting hard, our hairs are getting grayer every day, I mean, I love my eldership, but I can't run the way I used to run, And that's your job as the next generation, to take the baton. Make sure you're prepared to carry the legacy. It's heavy, but it's so beautiful. and liberating. So that's your task, and I'll stop here. I hope that you have some comments, some questions, and if you don't, I will call you by, from this podium here. Yeah. So thank you very much for your attention.